National debt tops 39 trillion. Elections have consequences. Health and Human Services announces updated food pyramid. This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America with my own take on the important stories of the day in politics and business. As usual, we have hot stories from all over the world. National debt tops $39 trillion. When I wrote my book released in 2018, Decline of America, one of my two motivations was the national debt. Sadly, the national debt has continued to surge upward. While Trump is talking about cutting government, the numbers are not supporting that claim. While the feds have reduced total employment, the reality is that the so-called one big beautiful bill that Trump bragged about is just as wasteful as any recent government action. The debt is increasing at a rate of, get this, folks, $71,800 per second, according to the U.S. Joint Economic Committee Republicans. As I explained before, if the U.S. was not the U.S., we would be in the poorhouse nations group. The U.S. has an amazing fan base around the world. If that fades, the outlook will not be positive. Further, this is a token number. The real national debt is over $100 trillion. Since the debt number does not include promised pensions for government employees and repayment of all of the Social Security and Medicare funds collected from taxpayers and then blown, not put into savings accounts for future payments. Elections have consequences. Virginia is my adopted home state. I still have a lot of family in the state. Glenn Youngkin just concluded a very successful term there. In Virginia, governors cannot succeed themselves. I support that limit. I was shocked when a terrific black female and military vet, Winsome Sears, Youngkin's lieutenant governor, was not elected to replace him. This was a grievous error on the part of the voters of Virginia. I believe what this jerk Spanberger has already done in a few weeks, this will be a horrible term for the people of Virginia. The mantra from the late 2025 elections was that the GOP candidates were killed on the issue of affordability. Well, let's look at that. First, New York City had a terrible former Dem governor pretending to be an independent, a GOP candidate with less than 10% support in deep blue New York City, and a new face, admittedly an ugly new face, of the dirty commie. The crazed electorate may have been swayed by promises of freebies and rent control. I predict less housing will be available and the cost will continue to skyrocket for those who actually pay taxes in New York City. In New Jersey, another blue voting state, you had a solid but unexciting GOP candidate against a typical Dem. It might have been a flip, but many GOP stayed home. Poor choice, you voters. In Virginia, again, the GOP voters stayed home. It makes no sense to me, but they may have been swayed by the false rhetoric that Trump did not deliver on economic promises. Here's the deal. The Biden-Harris failed administration delivered the worst inflation since Jimmy Carter's failed administration of the late 1970s. One item that I tracked went from around $4 to $6. The price is not going back to $4. Get over it. I have found it recently for $5.50. That is the new post-Biden stable price. As costs increase, it will likely go up more slowly from there. Trump promised a big price rollback. Typical of Trump, this is not going to happen. Hey, don't promise what you cannot deliver, and people won't be disappointed. The increase in supply has cut gas and oil prices substantially. That will have an impact on prices, but more moderation of future increases of other products. As promised, inflation has been reasonable and economic growth in the third quarter was a strong 4.4%. Getting back to Virginia, the new tax changes by Spanberger and her cronies will create record high taxes for the state. In fact, its state taxes, if all the proposed increases are implemented, could make Virginia higher than California state taxes, something not to be envied. In New Jersey, a state struggling with high energy costs, I predict those costs will continue to skyrocket. The failures of these recently elected Dems will hopefully be well documented by October of this year in time for the 2026 elections. You can fool some of the people some of the time. And speaking of failed Dems, Gavin Newsom's run for the roses. The Kentucky Derby is the most famous race in horse racing. If Pretty Boy No Sense was a racehorse, he would be the horse who gets lots of betting action, but does not get close to the front of the pack in the actual Derby race. For some reason, this abject failure is leading the pack on the Dem side of the 2028 presidential run. Beautiful California, a state I used to like to visit, is a mess. Governor since 2019, No Sense, and his fellow Dems have only themselves to blame. Blighted cities, high taxes, the ruinous LA fires, record high food and energy prices, trans procedures on minors, and Medicaid for illegals. Incredibly, he may have less to run on than Kamala Harris in 2024. I predict if this waste of space is the Dem candidate, he will lose like McGovern did in 1972, losing to a flawed Richard Nixon by a massive percentage. And speaking of lousy presidents, Clinton's refused to testify before Congress. Bill the Bum and Hillary the Deranged refused subpoenas to testify before Congress in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. I vividly recall Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro going to jail for months for refusing congressional subpoenas. In my opinion, they were invoking presidential privilege, which was at least plausible. In the case of the Clintons, they do not have even that defense, as this is unrelated to their political positions. Many say, oh, Trump's people are just trying to hide his own Epstein involvement. I've seen a lot of photos, folks. I have tracked pieces of a serious and sad case. I see Bill in compromising poses with young girls. The woman who was supposedly photographed with Trump stated unequivocally that he was not a predator. Unless their case is that the photos were created by AI, I think Bill has a problem and Trump does not. Not sure on the angle on Hillary. The refusal to testify raises serious issues regarding attempts at a continuing cover-up. No one is above the law. TikTok deal finally closes. Especially popular with the younger crowd, TikTok, owned by CCP-controlled ByteDance, has been operating under the threat of being shut down due to CCP influence for over a year. Trump moved the congressional deadline back several times. The idea is that a change of ownership will protect the users from massive invasions of privacy by the CCP. An estimated 150 million Americans use TikTok. The deal, orchestrated by the Trump administration, means only a percentage of ownership of the U.S. version of TikTok will change. Oracle Computer Systems, Silver Lake, and a UAE fund will own 80.1%, and ByteDance, currently the sole owner, will have 19.9%. I've never been confident that this app could be safely used. Given the continued involvement of the CCP, I will still pass on participating in TikTok. U.S. military out of the DEI purchasing business. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced what he characterized as a DEI program has just been eliminated. This was a special program referred to as 8A. His announcement indicated that few outside of D.C. know about it. Well, I've known about it for many decades. The idea of the program was to help small and disadvantaged, read that minority-owned, businesses participate in defense contracts. As Hegseth pointed out, the problem was that many of these 8A businesses became mere conduits to larger firms. They would take a piece of the action but were not doing the work. Supposedly, federal employees were supposed to audit this program to make sure this exact thing did not happen. Anyone want to put a kid in a federally subsidized Somali daycare center in Minneapolis? Yeah. I support small businesses for sure, but the program does not work as this one. Time to close the programs down. Murder rate in the U.S. drops 20%. Guess what? Locking up criminals, requiring cash bail, and arresting criminal illegals actually works. The 20% drop is the largest one-year drop in history. I know the left wants to claim that most illegals are really peace-loving and not criminals. The problem with this argument is that the stats don't lie. Many of the millions who walked over the border illegally into the U.S. could not obtain legal access since they had criminal records. Once they saw the deplorable non-justice system in the U.S., They started on new crime-ridden rampages. Many were deliberately released from jails and mental hospitals in their home countries. Doubt me? See the list of crimes that these illegals have committed, including the recent rape of an 11-year-old girl at knife point in front of her 10-year-old sister, and a double murder by another illegal. Yes, citizens commit crimes, but we don't need to import criminals to make it worse. Health and Human Services announces updated food pyramid. The HHS announced its updated food pyramid about the same time it released its new recommended reduced number of vaccines for children. That controversial announcement may have prevented full attention for the new food recommendations. I'm going to provide them below and then comment after that. According to HHS, the guidelines emphasize simple, flexible guidance rooted in modern nutrition science. Priorities protein at every meal. Consume full-fat dairy with no added sugars. Eat vegetables and fruits throughout the day, focusing on whole forms. Incorporate healthy fats from whole foods such as meat, seafood, eggs, nuts, seeds, olives, and avocados. Focus on whole grains while sharply reducing refined carbohydrates. Limit highly processed foods, added sugars, and artificial additives. Eat the right amount for you based on age, sex, size, and activity level. Choose water and unsweetened beverages to support hydration. Limit alcohol consumption for better overall health. In very general terms, this is the diet I have followed for 2.5 decades. I weigh the same amount as I did then. By itself, and the fact that most people gain weight as they age probably indicates that this pyramid has a strong basis behind it. As someone's concerned about both BP and cholesterol, I follow the above with an emphasis on low salt and much reduced saturated fat. That means I try to limit my diet to 3 eggs a week, extremely lean meat cuts, and low-fat dairy, not full fat. I do use whole wheat bread, rolls, and pasta, as well as brown rice. Many Americans have grown up on white flour products, may complain about the taste or texture, but a little consistency will acclimate your taste and palate fairly quickly. For many, conversion to brown rice may be a bit more demanding. My big concern as someone who eats out frequently is the lack of whole wheat products on many menus. Most Americans have a sweet tooth. I limit my sugar to 1 dessert a day as much as possible. I have incorporated stevia sugar substitute into my diet. Many complain that it does not taste like sugar, so converting to that is not easy to do, but you can do that. A tip, stevia is very powerful. Use a little tiny bit. Don't dump a teaspoon into a cup of sugar, a cup of a drink. It's not going to work for you. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.